Okay, so I've been playing around with tooling copper. Kind of new at this, but this was the first piece, at least the first piece that I've done in a while. And it's tooled on a piece of copper. And then I thought I'd try, well, I stained it with alcohol ink. And then I thought I'd try using some UV resin on the leaf, and that turned out pretty cool. Well, in my opinion. Kind of looks like enamel, maybe. So that was the first one. Then this was the second. It's just branches and leaves. Haven't done anything with this yet. It's just embossed. And then I was using up scraps. So here's one that I tooled on some scraps. Tiny scrap. And then I was trying to come up with some other ideas, maybe with a nature theme. And I thought, why not try embossing? Now this is a hard plastic stamp. Why not try embossing the copper on this stamp? So I taped it down on here and burnished it for quite a while with my polymer clay acrylic roller. And now what I'm doing is just using this cutting mat. I have a foam mat that Made of Metal recommends or offers, but it was too spongy. So now I'm just using this hard cutting mat, but it has just enough give that I can work on this copper. So I thought I'd show you where I begin, and I'll show you what it looks like in just a few minutes. So the first step was I took a ball tool and I exaggerated the outline of each of the leaves. And then what I'll do now is turn it over and emboss into the areas around the leaves. So I'll be right back in a few minutes. Okay, now I've finished embossing it on this side, deepening the spaces between the leaves. You can see it's a little more exaggerated. Now what I'll do is I'll flip it over and I'll outline each of the leaves again. Maybe add a tiny bit of the details. But for the most part, I'm not going to worry about the details until the very end. But let me tell you, this is hard on my hands. Phew. Anyway, I'll be back. Okay, here's the next phase where I deepened all the leaves and I added a tiny bit of detail with a needle tool. So next I flip it over and I deepen all the spaces between a little bit more. All right, well, I'm sorry to say that I filmed a portion of the video with the video off. So what I did was I finished up the embossing on both sides. And then I dropped a little alcohol ink on here. I think it was Lettuce Stream. There was a hot pink one that didn't have a name on it. And then I covered it with India ink and let it dry. So what I'm going to attempt to do now with this old kitchen sponge is burnish off the India ink from the raised areas. There it comes. You might not be able to see the ink here, or the alcohol ink. Well, let me get a wet cloth. Oh, this is taking off some of the indie ink to expose the alcohol ink. I like that. Okay, so there it is. Not exactly as I planned, but still kind of cool. Okay, this is kind of cool. I took 3000 grit micro mesh and buffed it, and now you can see the details. So I'm a little happier now. So anyway, that's my experiment with copper embossing. Thank you. Okay, so I showed you how I created this, which is kind of like cheating, but I didn't show you how I created these, which I drew freehand or doodled, whatever, on the copper first and then embossed it. So I thought I would go through the process of doing it by freehand, so stay tuned. So first what I did was I sketched a acorn on a piece of paper. I love acorns, and I thought that would be perfect for embossing. And well, I cut the paper to fit a piece of copper sheet that I had. And that is from, I bought it at Hobby Lobby. It's 0.005 thick, 36 gauge. And the sheet's 12-inch by 30-inch soft copper by K&S Precision Metals in Chicago, Illinois. So anyway, it's pretty thick. I mean, compared to what I was used to. So what I did was, and you see how it's kind of curled. I took my polymer clay and acrylic roller, and I just rolled it over the copper to flatten it out. So then cut paper to fit, measured it, and I have a border on here because what I'm going to do on this copper, the edges are sharp. I'm going to fold a 1/4 inch all the way around, fold it over so I don't cut myself while I'm working on this. It also helps to keep it from buckling up really bad. So that's what I'm going to do next. So first what I'm going to do is measure the 1/4 inch boulder on the copper. And I'm going to mark the copper with a ball tool. I'll just create a mark. Like so. And then press down to create an indent like that. And do that on each side. Okay, now I've created the border. And I'm going to take a scissors. And these are my craft scissors, so I don't care, you know, if I ruin the blade. But I'm going to cut at an angle. Like that. On all 4 corners. Sometimes I still get sharp tips on the corners, and I don't know how to prevent that, but all right. So this is what I have now. Next, I'm going to use my ruler, and I have to do this at the edge of the table, so I'll be right back. Okay, what I've done is I've used the edge of my ruler, lined it up with the score on the side, and folded the copper over like that. And then next, I'll just take something, in this case a pen, and flatten that out. Maybe I'll use this instead. Yeah, it's better. Okay, so that's the first, and I will do this on all 4 sides. Okay, now I have this, and it's a little curved, so I'm going to flip it over and roll over it with my acrylic roller. Okay, now the sides are no longer sharp, so that's good. Now what I'm going to do is tape this down. First, I think I'll fold the border over. At least on the top 3 sides. And then I'll take some tape. Hold on, I have to find it. Okay, so it was coming too close to the edges of the piece of copper if I were to put it on there square. So I decided to tape it down at an angle. And now I'm going to trace over it with a pen to score the copper. And I just kind of apply firm pressure. And I don't know if you can see that score right there. And I'm going to continue to do this, and I'll be right back. Okay, now I've traced over it. What I did is the initial drawing was in black, and I used a blue pen so I could kind of tell, although barely, where I had traced already. But then I also peeked underneath, and I could look on this side as well to make sure that I had traced over every line, and I had a nice good impression. So now I'll remove the drawing. There we go. And now you see I have the outline on here. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a ball tool. I'm not sure which one. Probably this one. And I'm going to trace and deepen all of these lines just by doing this on my surface. Just kind of rubbing over the line. I don't know if you can tell how much deeper that is, but I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, you can see I've done the cap of the acorn, and now I'll finish up by tracing around the acorn nut. And the folded border is kind of presenting a problem, so you might want to make sure your drawing fits inside the folded edges. I measured 1/4 inch folded edges because I know I'm going to have some issues, but that's okay. I'm learning as I go with this stuff. Okay, so now the outline of the acorn has been deepened. What I'll do next is turn it over, and I'm going to emboss into the copper in between each outline, which will cause it to push out on the front. And you want to do it, you can't really tell yet, but you want to do this gently, because what you're doing is you're stretching the copper, and you don't want to push too hard and tear it. And you want to do it kind of slowly so that you can get a nice deep impression without causing any issues. So anyway, I'm going to continue to do this, and I will be right back. I did want to come back and say that it might be a good idea, you see how I've embossed just a few. It might be a good idea to, before you continue any further, go ahead and flip it over and trace your lines again on the opposite side. That way you don't lose sight of them. And then continue on this side, tracing the lines, and then turn it over and emboss between the lines, like so. And always remember to work on a surface that has some give. So I'll continue and I'll be back. I thought I'd show you some of my progress. I had to move to a smaller ball tool because there's so many tiny corners and crevices. I don't know if you can tell, but this is basically the area I've worked on so far. Trying to turn this around. And what I've done is I've flipped it back and forth probably about 6 times so far. And on this side, I am deepening the indents, the outlines, flipping it over, and on this side, causing each, the center between all the outlines to bulge out, like so. So I'm going to continue. Okay, I've pretty much got the cap done. Well, I'll probably go over it a little bit more, but I wanted to show you how it's progressing. Now what I'm going to do is begin working on the body of the acorn, the nut part. And I'm going to use a larger tool for that. Let me grab it. Sorry about that. I thought I had them right next to me, but I didn't. Okay, so this one I got from Made Metal, and it's a hard plastic. And then these two are wood. It says they came from Kemper Tools. Well, at least this one was. I'm not sure if they're intended for copper, but I've been using them. But anyway, so first I'm going to outline the nut on this side, and then begin embossing using one of these larger tools on this side. And I'll be back. Okay, this is what I have so far. It was much easier to emboss the copper with this tool. This tool just isn't fine enough to work on the cap, all the details in the cap, so I'm going to have to take the ball tool and deepen this a little bit more, because it actually should stand out more than the nut. And what I also started doing was deepening the surrounding area around the acorn, and found that those folded edges indeed are getting in my way. But in this case I have to work with it, and I kind of like the border that it's creating, if you can see it in the video. But next time I'm going to make sure that my design fits in the center because I'm trying to work through basically what amounts to 2 layers of copper on the edges. So I'm going to work on this a little bit more and I'll be back. This is what I have. I like the fact that using this tool and burnishing around the acorn, it caused the edges to cup a little bit, which I think is kind of cool. And I might use that to my advantage because I'm thinking about adding some resin around the outside. But do you see the border of the folded edges that it created? I like that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to texture. I think I'm going to leave the borders alone. I might add something at each corner, but I'm going to texture the area surrounding the acorn. Probably using a ball tool, a slightly larger one. Let's see. Maybe this, but that might be a little bit too big. But I'm going to tap around and create a texture. I'll be right back. Okay, here's what I wound up with. I really like that. It really helps the acorn to stand out. And then I just took my largest ball tool and created an indent in each of the 4 corners. So, yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like this. In the next video, I'm going to play around with surface treatments. I have liver of sulfate, is that what it's called? I have that. I have India ink. I have Christy Friesen Swelligant. I'm going to create several of these, or several that are similar, and then in the next video we'll play around with how to create different surface textures, adding color. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I have to say that I'm learning as I go, so there may be better ways to do this, but I just wanted to share with you my creative journey. Thank you. Bye. Well, as a mini preview, I thought I'd show you a couple that I did with Christy Friesen's Swelligants. And I can't remember which one I used on these. I've made these quite a while ago, but I wasn't super happy with the results, but I want to try again. You may really like this. I mean, this is actually a real patina on the copper. So, and what's really cool but risky about Christy Friesen's Swelligants is the results are a little unpredictable, which is actually, like I said, can be kind of cool, or you might be a little disappointed. But like I said before, in the next video, I'll play with all different ways that you can treat the surface of the copper. So, thanks again. Bye.